Welcome dear students. In today's class, we shall discuss the photochemistry, which is a branch of physical chemistry which deals with the reactions taking place by light radiations. This photochemistry deals with the physical and chemical change when UV light or visible light is incident on a substance. Branch of chemistry which deals with absorption or emission of light. Absorption or emission of light by the substances in the UV or visible region. So, some substances when irradiated with the visible light or ultraviolet light, changes takes place. Chemical changes or physical changes takes place. This branch of chemistry which deals with the changes, reactions taking place by the substances in the ultraviolet region or visible region. The radiation, the wavelength of these ultraviolet and visible radiations, ultraviolet radiation between 100 angstroms to 4000 angstroms wavelength range, visible region 4000 angstroms to 7000 angstroms. So, in this region process takes place. That process is called photochemical reaction. Now, when the substance is irradiated with this visible radiation, what happens there actually? Now, this visible changes takes place, photochemical reaction takes place. The main difference between photochemical reaction and other regular reactions, that is thermochemical reactions. Photochemical reactions, they take place by the irradiation or light radiation only, visible light or ultraviolet radiation, whereas our other thermal reactions, they take place on heating. Therefore, the difference between photochemical reaction and thermochemical reaction is that, so these photochemical reactions, they take place by the UV or visible region, visible light, whereas here this thermochemical reaction, they take place by the action of heat, thermochemical reaction and the photochemical reaction. Here the temperature effect on this photochemical reaction is very low. There is less effect of this temperature, increase or decrease in temperature has got less effect on this photochemical reaction, whereas the rate has got a sufficient effect, has got a lot of difference in the rate of this chemical reaction. So, rate is proportional to temperature of the reaction. When the temperature is increased, for a very 10-degree rise in temperature, the rate of the reaction is doubled. Therefore, this has got a high effect of temperature. The rate of this thermochemical reaction has got a lot. First difference, UV or visible radiations are responsible for photochemical change, whereas here heat is responsible for thermochemical reaction. Temperature has got very less effect on photochemical reaction, whereas the rate of the reaction is directly proportional to the temperature. As the temperature increases, the rate will be increased, the direct effect of temperature on the rate of the reaction. And in case of photochemical reactions, free energy change, it may be positive or it may be negative. Sometimes it is positive, and even though free energy change is positive, photochemical reaction takes place. Whereas in case of a thermochemical reaction, always this free energy change is negative, always negativity. So that is the difference between photochemical reaction and the thermochemical reaction. In a photochemical reaction, on a system, when light radiation, visible or ultraviolet radiation is irradiated, photochemical reaction takes place. Two basic laws, they govern the photochemical reactions. Those two basic laws, first law is Grothus-Draper law. Grothus-Draper law. And second law is Stark-Einstein law. These two laws are the basic laws which explain the photochemical reactions. In this Grothus-Draper law, Grothus and Draper, they observed that when light is irradiated on a substance, different process takes place there. A part of the light is reflected back, a part of the light is transmitted, and part of the light is absorbed. Therefore, when you irradiate a substance, a system with I naught, suppose say I naught is the intensity of the incident light. When I naught is irradiated on a substance, what happens? This immediately there is some reflection, let us say IR. The light will be reflected back, or a part of the light is transmitted, let it be IT, transmitted, and some part of the light is absorbed, IB. Therefore, the intensity of the incident light will be split into different types. A part of the light is absorbed and a part of the light is reflected and a part of the light is transmitted. Therefore, this I naught is the sum of IR plus I absorbed plus I transmitted. So, intensity of the incident light is split here. A part of the intensity of the light is reflected back, a part is absorbed and a part is transmitted. Now, Grothus and Draper observed that physical or chemical change in the system is due to this absorbed light. Absorbed light is responsible for the change, physical and chemical change takes place in the system, in the substance. Therefore, the statement of the law is that it is the absorbed light that is responsible for the reaction in a system. It is the absorbed light. See the statement. It is the absorbed light responsible for the reaction of the system, for the reaction of the substance, So, a substance to undergo reaction, light should be absorbed. Without absorption, there is no reaction at all. So, this Grothus and Draper proposed the statement of the law is that it is the absorbed light, I absorbed. It is the absorbed light responsible for the reaction of the substance. But the substance to react, it should absorb the light radiation, that is the rule. So, therefore, this absorbed light brings about the change in the system, brings about the change in the substance. Now, different changes take place in the substance. So, this absorbed light has got different effect on the substance. What happens? Light is absorbed, and immediately after the absorption, light may be emitted back. But there is a change. there is change in the wavelength of the absorbed light. So light is absorbed and immediately emitted. Light emitted. But the change is that the wavelength of the absorbed light is different from that of the emitted light. So this process is called fluorescence. Fluorescence. So fluorescence is a photochemical change that takes photochemical change takes place in the substance, that is the absorbed light is immediately emitted back. What is the change here? The change is in the wavelength of the absorbed light. Therefore, the color of the absorbed light is different from that of the emitted light, because their wavelengths are different, their colors are different. Wavelength is different. It is different wavelength is emitted, that is fluorescence, immediate emission of the absorbed light. Suppose if the absorbed light is emitted after some time, it will take few seconds or few minutes for emission, slowly it will be emitted. So this type of process is called phosphorescence. Phosphorescence. So phosphorescence is a process where there is no chemical change, only absorbed light is emitted slowly. It will take some time for this emission. That process is called phosphorescence process. Now, suppose if the absorbed light brings a change in the system, it ionizes the system, it emits electrons, it removes electrons from the system. This effect is called photoelectric effect. Photoelectric effect. So in this photoelectric effect, when the light is irradiated on the substance, there is ionization takes place and the electron is emitted, and this effect is called photoelectric effect. Photoelectric effect, that is the effect of light radiation. Now, actually, in many cases, these substances undergo chemical reaction. Substances react together, atoms or molecules react together to form other products. Actual chemical reaction takes place by the effect of light. This is called photochemical reaction. Photochemical reaction. In this photochemical reaction, photochemical synthesis, photochemical decomposition, photochemical formation, for example, synthesis of hydrogen bromide, hydrogen chloride by the reaction of hydrogen and chlorine, hydrogen and bromine. Actually, chemical reaction takes place by the effect of light. Those reactions are photochemical reactions. Therefore, this first law, Groth-Draper law, tells us about the effect of absorbed light. So it is the absorbed light that is responsible for the reaction, for the change that takes place in the system. So this is about the first law, Groth-Draper law. Now come to the second law. Of photochemistry. The second law of photochemistry. This law is proposed by two eminent persons, Stark and Einstein. That's why this law is called Stark-Einstein law. Stark-Einstein law. So this law was proposed when during the study of quantum theory of radiations. They proposed second law for this photochemistry. Stark and Einstein observed that the molecules, the reacting substance, each molecule of the reacting substance absorbs one photon of light. That is the law. So one photon of light brings about the change in a single molecule or a single particle or a single atom. That is the law. The statement of the law is that during photochemical reaction, one molecule, one atom or molecule of the reacting substance absorbs one quanta of radiation during photochemical change. That is the law. So the law states that during when a substance or a system is irradiated with the light radiation consists of energy packets called quanta. According to quantum theory, this light radiation, visible radiation as well as ultraviolet radiation, they are made up of quantas of energy. Quanta of energy, the energy of each photon is represented by E is equal to h nu, where nu is the frequency and h is the Planck's constant. So energy of each photon is equal to h nu. So energy depends on the frequency. Therefore, each molecule absorbs one photon of radiation. For a change, for a photochemical change takes place, 1 quanta per molecule or 1 quanta per atom. That is the law. Now, according to this law, number of molecules or atoms reacted divided by number of photons or quanta absorbed is always equal to 1. It's always equal to 1 because each molecule or atom absorbs 1 quanta or 1 photon for a chemical reaction to take place. Therefore, the number of molecules that are reacted, it absorbs the same number of photons or quanta. Therefore, this ratio is always equal to 1 and this is called quantum efficiency represented by phi. Phi is the quantum efficiency. Quantum efficiency is the ratio of number of molecules reacted by the number of photons or number of quanta absorbed. So, it as according to the law, according to Stark-Einstein law, it should be always 1. Therefore, this ratio is called quantum efficiency. Quantum efficiency is 1 according to the law, but actually in many reactions quantum efficiency is not equal to 1. It is not equal to unity. Sometimes quantum efficiency is less than 1 and quantum efficiency is greater than 1. Therefore, there is a change in the quantum efficiency which is not according to the law. Quantum efficiency is less than unity in some cases and it is more than unity in some other cases. If the quantum efficiency represented by phi, quantum efficiency if it is less than 1, that is called low quantum yield. So, in some cases the quantum yield is very low quantum yield process, and if the quantum yield, quantum efficiency, if it is greater than 1, it is high quantum yield. Therefore, there is a change, there is a difference between the statement of the law and the actual observation. Statement of the law is that 1 photon per molecule, whereas in actual observation, quantum efficiency is not 1 quanta per molecule, it is different. Therefore, low quantum yield is there and high quantum yield is there. So, this formation of low quantum yield as well as high quantum yield, it was explained by giving the mechanism for photochemical reaction. In this mechanism of photochemical reaction, photochemical reaction will not take place in a single step. There are several steps for this photochemical reaction. First step is called primary process. So, in this primary process, this law holds good. Stark-Einstein law holds good in the primary process. According to the primary process, when the substance is irradiated with the light radiation, it will not undergo the reaction immediately. It absorbs the light and the absorbed light increases the energy of the substance, and that state of increased in state is called excited state. So therefore, a substance when irradiated with a radiation which has photons, number of photons, this A, each molecule or atom of the reacting substance absorbs one photon of radiation and it undergoes excitation represented by A star. So for the primary process, the law holds good. This Stark-Einstein law holds good for the primary process. Therefore, every atom or molecule absorbs one photon of radiation per molecule, one photon of radiation per atom. First step is it undergoes excitation. The energy of the system, energy of the atom increases. That is called the excited atom or molecule. So first in the primary process it gets excited. In the secondary process further changes takes place. In the secondary process further changes takes place, and there the amount of product formed or the amount of the substance reacted are different, because there is a change in the secondary process. In the secondary process, what happens? This excited atom, it can react with another atom or molecule, another substance, and it produces excited B, or this undergoes ionization to form A plus, or this undergoes to form a free radical. A number of changes take place in the secondary step. Therefore, this another excited atom or molecule, this will initiate the further reaction, and a more number of excited molecules and more number of intermediates are formed in the secondary process. Therefore, these ions or excited molecules produced in the secondary process, they can initiate the reaction. There is a chain reaction takes place and the product will be more. So quantum yield is high. High quantum yield is due to the initiation of the reaction by the intermediates, excited molecules, ions. These, they further increase the reaction, they further initiate the reaction. Therefore, a number of reaction takes place, hence the product is more, that is high quantum yield. In some cases, this excited molecule, which one? A star, this excited molecule will be deactivated by another atom or molecule. This will be deactivated. When it is deactivated, the amount of the product produced is less, that is called low quantum yield. Low quantum yield is due to the deactivation of the intermediates, deactivation of the excited molecule. Low quantum yield is there, and if the intermediates propagates the reaction, the quantum yield is very high. Therefore, in any photochemical reaction, two stages are there, and law is applicable to only the primary process. Each atom or molecule absorbs one quanta of energy. The one quantum is represented by E is equal to h nu, energy of the photon. Energy of the photon is equal to Planck's constant and the frequency of radiation. Here actually instead of calculating the quantum efficiency, we can calculate the quantum efficiency. How much amount is irradiated and how much product is formed. We can calculate the quantum efficiency. It may be sometimes low, it may be sometimes high. Therefore, instead of calculating the quantum efficiency of number of molecules, we can use in terms of moles, because the number of molecules or number of quanta is very less. We can use number of moles. Therefore, quantum efficiency can also be defined as number of moles of the product, number of moles of the reactant, number of moles of the reactants divided by number of moles of the photons. 1 mole of photon is also called 1 Einstein. 1 Einstein of energy is nothing but the energy of 1 mole of photon. 1 mole of photon is 1 Avogadro number of photon. 1 Avogadro number of photon is 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23. So therefore, this n Avogadro number is nothing but 1 mole. 1 mole that is equal to 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23. So if you take 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23 molecule, it is nothing but mole, 1 mole. 1 mole is nothing but 1 Avogadro number. Similarly, 1 mole of photon is nothing but 1 Avogadro number of photons. 1 Avogadro number of photons energy is, we call it as Einstein, number of Einsteins. So number of Einsteins of energy. Number of Einsteins of energy. So this ratio, instead of taking number of atoms divided by number of quanta, we can take number of moles divided by number of Einstein of energy. This gives you the quantum efficiency. For example, if you calculate the quantum efficiency, this number of moles phi is equal to number of moles. Number of moles means number of Avogadro number, 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23 molecules divided by number of Einsteins. You can also calculate the quantum efficiency in this way. Okay. Now instead of using number of photons of energy, we can use number of moles. Number of moles of energy, 1 mole of photon is called 1 Einstein of energy. 1 Einstein is equal to E is equal to NH nu. So nu is the frequency of radiation. Nu is equal to C by lambda. C is equal to nu lambda, or nu is equal to C by lambda. Therefore, if you substitute E is equal to NHC by lambda, where N is the Avogadro number, H is the Planck's constant, C is the velocity of light, and lambda is the wavelength of radiation. By substituting these values, N is equal to Avogadro number 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23 into Planck's constant is 6.62 into 10 to the power of minus 34, and the C, velocity of light, is 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meters per second divided by wavelength lambda. If you substitute this, you will get E is equal to 11.97 into 10 to the power of minus 2 joules. So this is the value, the energy of 1 Einstein of energy. So if you know the wavelength in meters, if you substitute the wavelength in meters, you can find out the energy of that radiation. So this is the calculation of 1 Einstein of energy. For example, if there is a problem here, there is a problem, nodili, ee problem nodi. Calculate the energy in joules per quantum of light with the wavelength 500 nanometers. So wavelength is given here, wavelength is 500 nanometers. So we know that E is equal to NHC by lambda. You substitute the values, and you substitute the values for N is equal to 1. N is equal to 1 mole. Therefore, per quanta, N is equal to 1 molecule into Planck's constant 6.62 into 10 to the power minus 34 into velocity of light 3 into 10 to the power of 8 meters per second, and wavelength is given in meters. You have to substitute 500 nanometer. 1 nanometer is equal to 10 to the power of minus 9 meters. Therefore, 500 10 to the power, you substitute that, you will get 3.970 10 to the power minus 90 joules per quantum. Therefore, if the wavelength of the radiation is known, we can find out the energy of each quanta by using this equation. So energy of that quantum of radiation having wavelength 500 nanometers is nothing but 3.92 into 10 to the power of minus 19 joules. So this is how we can calculate the energy of absorption and the reaction produced, and we can find out that. Now, practically, how to determine the quantum efficiency? To determine the quantum efficiency of a photochemical reaction, we use the instruments called actinometers. Actinometers are the instruments used to determine the quantum efficiency of a photochemical reaction. So, in this actinometer, different types of actinometers are there. One such actinometer is uranium oxalate actinometer. Uranium oxalate actinometer. Uranyl oxalate actinometer. Oxalate actinometer. So, using this instrument, we can find out the quantum efficiency. You can find out the quantum efficiency. So, what is the mechanism? What is the action taking place in this actinometer? This actinometer contains oxalic acid solution as well as uranyl sulfate. Uranyl sulfate 0.01 normal, uranyl sulfate 0.01 normal, and oxalic acid 0.05 normal solution. Therefore, in this uranyl oxalate actinometer, the actinometer contains uranyl sulfate as well as oxalic acid. So, this uranyl sulfate acts as a catalyst there. It is called photosensitizer. In presence of uranyl sulfate, oxalate undergoes decomposition. So, when irradiated by the light radiation of known wavelength through this actinometer, what happens? Oxalic acid undergoes decomposition. Oxalic acid undergoes decomposition. One molecule decomposes per one photon and it forms carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide and H2O. Therefore, if you take a known volume of oxalic acid and if you irradiate, the number of photons can be obtained from in this actinometer. Number of photons that is irradiated. So, each photon decomposes oxalic acid into carbon dioxide. Therefore, number of molecules that are decomposed is equal to number of photons absorbed. Therefore, the absorption of light can be calculated, can be obtained by this uranyl oxalate actinometer. Now, first what happens? The actinometer is first irradiated with the light radiation of known wavelength for some time. Then the emitted light is obtained in this uranyl oxalate actinometer. Now, in the same time, for the same time, the light radiation is passed through the solution. Photochemical reaction taking place in that solution. After some time, after passing the radiation through the solution, the remaining light which is emitted after the reaction can be obtained from this actinometer. Therefore, the amount of radiation absorbed is obtained from the actinometer. The amount of absorption light can be obtained from the actinometer, and the amount of molecule that is reacted is also obtained. So, by taking the ratio amount of molecule reacted by the amount of quanta absorbed, we can find out the quantum efficiency. This is called uranyl oxalate actinometer. There are two steps in this actinometer as I told you. One is radiation is passed through the solvent only and the amount of quantum is obtained from the actinometer. Second step is in the actinometer a known solution, the solution which is to be examined is taken and the radiation is passed through the solution in the same time, same amount of time, and the radiation emitted is also obtained. By taking the absorption, the amount of radiation absorbed, we can find out the quantum efficiency. Now, uranyl oxalate actinometer is like the apparatus is like that. First, it consists of the following parts. First is source of light. Source of light is there. Then there is a lens which concentrates this light radiation, and again that is passed through a monochromator which gives only the radiation of single wavelength, and this single wavelength radiation is made into a narrow beam by using a slit. This is the slit, this is the monochromata. So slit, then it is passed through a thermostat which contains the experimental solution. Experimental solution is here. So this is the thermostat, and there is actinometer which contains uranyl sulfate and oxalic acid, and this uranyl oxalate actinometer. So these are the parts of the actinometer. First, the source of light. Now the source of light is produced here. Using this lens, it is made concentrated or high intensity light, and it is passed through the monochromata, which gives a monochromatic light. It is passed through the filter, and the light is passed through the solution and the actinometer. This actinometer, it can read the emitted light after absorption. Now in the beginning, in the thermostat, only the solvent is taken and the light radiation passed through that for a known time. Then the radiation, emitted radiation will be converted into a form of energy using using photoelectric effect, and the amount of current produced is equal to the amount of radiation emitted here. So the amount of radiation is first noted down. Then in this thermostat, the solution, the reactant which is to be studied is taken here. Again the radiation is passed through the solution for the same amount of time, and then the amount of radiation emitted is known. Second time definitely it is less, because some amount of radiation is absorbed by the reactant. Therefore the intensity of the light is reduced in the second time. Therefore the amount of light reduced or the amount of light radiation absorbed by the solution is obtained from the actinometer. So by substituting the amount of radiation in the beginning, we can find out how much reactant is reacted. So therefore this actinometer, which contains oxalic acid, is first titrated with the empty solution or solvent, and second time after passing the light through the solution, second time it is titrated. Therefore how much amount of oxalic acid is decomposed in the beginning, and how much amount of oxalic acid decomposed after the reaction. So by knowing that, the amount of photons, number of photons can be obtained. Similarly, so by substituting the amount of the substance reacted by number of quanta absorbed, we can find out the quantum efficiency. Therefore, quantum efficiency determination, in the quantum efficiency determination, we using the equipment called uranyl oxalate actinometer. Uranyl oxalate actinometer is the equipment to find out the quantum efficiency of a reaction, right? Now here a problem is there. A certain system absorbs 3 into 10 to the power of 18 quanta of light per second on irradiation for 20 minutes. So in the thermostat, they have taken a reacting substance, and they have irradiated the light for 20 minutes. The reactant is found to have reacted. How much reacted? 0.003 mole. The amount of the reactant is 0.003 mole of the reactant was found to be reacted. Calculate the quantum yield for the process. Now there is an example to calculate the quantum yield using this actinometer. So how many molecules are reacted? Number of molecules reacted in certain time. Some amount of time they have irradiated the solution with the light radiation. Now 0.003 mole gets reacted. So we know the reaction phi is equal to number of molecules, number of moles. Number of molecules can be obtained by multiplying this 0.003 mole by the Avogadro number, 6.023 into 10 to the power of 23, divided by number of quantum absorbed. Number of quantum absorbed, how much is given here? 3 into 10 to the power of 18 quanta is absorbed. Substitute here. 3 into 10 to the power of 18 quanta per second. but here they have passed it for 20 minutes. Therefore, you convert that into seconds, 20 into 60. Therefore, number of molecules reacted in certain time divided by number of quanta observed in the same time. If you substitute, quantum efficiency is 0.5. So, quantum efficiency can be observed. Now, let us take some specific examples to study the low quantum yield as well as high quantum yield. Low quantum yield was studied by taking the photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide, and the high quantum yield is studied by taking the photosynthesis of hydrogen chloride. In case of photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide, it is observed that the quantum efficiency is very less. It is of the order of 10 to the power of minus 2. Whereas, in the photosynthesis of hydrogen chloride, the quantum efficiency is between 10 to the power of 4 to 10 to the power of 6, very high. 1 lakh molecule, product molecule is formed by the use of 1 quantum of energy. Therefore, the quantum yield is very high in case of photosynthesis of hydrogen chloride, and the quantum yield is very low in case of photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide. Now, let us study these two. Let us study the mechanism why this quantum efficiency is very low and why the quantum efficiency is very high. So, let us study that in detail. Okay? Now, let us take some specific examples where the quantum efficiency is less than 1, and take one more example where the quantum efficiency is more than 1. One specific example is photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide. Photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide. So, hydrogen bromide is formed when hydrogen and bromine reacts in presence of quantum of radiation to form 2HBr. In this case, quantum efficiency is less than 1. That means, quantum efficiency is equal to of the order of 0.01. Now, why the quantum efficiency is low? This Einstein law, Stark-Einstein law applicable to the primary process. There are two processes here, primary process as well as secondary process. In the primary process, what happens? Bromine molecule absorbs 1 photon of radiation and it gets excited, Br2 star. So, therefore, each molecule absorbs 1 quanta. For Stark-Einstein law is applicable here. But in the secondary process, what happens? This excited bromine reacts with the hydrogen to form hydrogen bromide, and it produces a free radical H dot. Free radical H dot is produced. This step where the excited bromine dissociates hydrogen to form HBr, and H dot and Br dot are produced. This is endothermic. That is why the quantum yield is low. Why the quantum yield is low? In the secondary process, some steps are endothermic, deactivates the reaction. That is why the yield is low. So, in the secondary process, this Br star forms hydrogen bromide and 2 free radicals are produced, hydrogen bromine. So, this step is deactivates the reaction, hence the yield is very low. Now, next step is this H dot reacts with another bromine molecule to form HBr plus Br dot. Br dot reacts with one more molecule of hydrogen to form HBr plus H dot, and the process continues. But some steps are endothermic like this, hence the quantum yield is very low. Quantum yield is very low, it is of the order of pi is equal to 0.0, because some steps are endothermic reaction. It deactivates the reaction. That is why the quantum efficiency is low in case of photosynthesis of hydrogen bromide. But in case of photosynthesis of hydrogen chloride, quantum efficiency is very high. Of the order of 10 to the power of 4, 1000 times more when compared to hydrogen bromide. Here in the photosynthesis of HCl, first chlorine chlorine absorbs one quantum of radiation to form excited chlorine molecule. So this is the primary process. In this primary process, Stark-Einstein law is applicable. One molecule of chlorine absorbs one photon exactly and it undergoes excitation. Excited chlorine, then it undergoes further reaction in the secondary process. Chlorine molecule, excited chlorine molecule reacts with the hydrogen to form HCl, as well as it forms hydrogen H dot and Cl dot, free radicals are produced. This is exothermic. This is endothermic here, the first step. This is exothermic. So because of exothermic reaction, energy is produced there itself, hence the reaction rate is increased, enhanced, where it is deactivated here and the reaction is activated here. That is because of the exothermic steps in the secondary process. So in the secondary process, exothermic, now this H dot undergoes reaction with further chlorine, it forms HCl and Cl dot is produced. Then this Cl dot reacts with another molecule and the process continues like this. HCl is produced and Cl dot. So many steps are there in the secondary process. Some steps are exothermic. Because of the exothermic change, the energy will be released and the rate of the reaction, the amount of the reaction enhanced. Hence, the quantum efficiency is more than 10 to the power of 4, more than 10,000 times, whereas here the quantum efficiency is reduced and more than 100 times it is reduced. That is the responsibility, that is how the quantum efficiency is increased or reduced because of the different steps involving exothermic and endothermic changes. So hence the quantum efficiency is very high. Okay? So this is about quantum efficiency of photosynthetic reactions. Next time we shall start with the photophysical process. Thank you very much.